Martin Luther's slogan was, "Take away the Mass, destroy the Church." St. Alphonsus said, quote, "The devil has always attempted by means of heretics to deprive the world of the Mass, making them precursors of the Antichrist, who before anything else will try to abolish, and will actually abolish the holy sacrifice of the Mass as a punishment for the sins of men, according to the prediction of Daniel, and strength was given him against the continual sacrifice." In this tape we will prove that the Novus Ordo, or New Mass, is not Catholic, is sacrilegious, is scandalous, is blasphemous, and is definitely invalid. The traditional Latin Mass, the most holy act of worship of the Roman Rite of the Catholic Church, was codified by Pope St. Pius V in his Bull Quo Primum in 1570. Pope St. Pius V said in Quo Primum, quote, "It shall be unlawful henceforth and forever throughout the Christian world to sing or to read masses according to any formula other than this missal published by us." Pope St. Pius V went on to say, quote, "This present constitution can never be revoked or modified, but shall forever remain valid and have the force of law, and if, nevertheless, anyone would ever dare attempt any action contrary to this order of ours, handed down for all times, let him know that he has incurred the wrath of Almighty God and the blessed apostles Peter and Paul." In 1969, Paul VI replaced the traditional Latin Mass in Vatican II churches with his own creation, the New Mass or Novus Ordo. Since that time, the world has seen the following in the Vatican II churches, which celebrate the New Mass or Novus Ordo. The world has seen clown masses in which the, quote, priest dresses as a clown in utter mockery of God. The world has seen priests dress as Dracula, in football jerseys accompanied by cheerleaders, as a cheesehead. There have been disco masses, gymnastic performances during the New Mass, balloon masses, carnival masses, nude masses, at which scantily clad or nude people take part, and we have seen juggling masses at which a juggler performs during the New Mass. The world has seen priests celebrate the New Mass with Dorito chips, with Mountain Dew, on a cardboard box with cookies, with Chinese tea accompanied by ancestor worship, with a basketball as a priest bounces it all over the altar, with a guitar as the priest plays a solo performance. The world has witnessed the New Mass with a priest almost totally nude as he dances around the altar, with priests dressed in native pagan costumes, with a Jewish menorah placed on the altar, with a statue of Buddha on the altar, with nuns making offerings to female goddesses, with lectors and gift-bearers dressed up as voodoo Satanists. The world has seen the New Mass at which the performer is dressed up in a tuxedo and tells jokes. The world has seen rock concerts at the New Mass, guitar and polka New Masses, a puppet New Mass, a New Mass where the people gather around the altar dressed as devils, a New Mass where people perform lewd dances to the beat of a steel drum band. The world has seen a New Mass where nuns dressed as pagan Vestal Virgins make pagan offerings. The world has also seen New Masses incorporating every false religion. There have been Buddhist New Masses, Hindu and Muslim New Masses where Jews and Unitarians offer candles to false gods. There are churches where the entire congregation says the Mass with the priest, where the priest sometimes talks to the people instead of saying Mass. What we have cataloged is just a tiny sampling of the kind of thing that occurs in every diocese in the world where the New Mass is celebrated, to one degree or another. Our Lord tells us, "By their fruits you shall know them." The fruits of the New Mass are incalculably scandalous, sacrilegious, and idolatrous. This is because the New Mass itself is a false, invalid Mass and an abomination. When the New Mass came out in 1969, Cardinals Ottaviani, Bacci, and some other theologians wrote to Paul VI about it. Keep in mind that what they said about the New Mass concerns the Latin version, the, quote, most pure version of the New Mass. Their study is popularly known as the Ottaviani intervention. It states, quote, The Novus Ordo, the new order of Mass, represents both as a whole and in its details a striking departure from the Catholic theology of the Mass as it was formulated in Session 22 of the Council of Trent. They could clearly see that the Latin version of the new Mass was a striking departure from the teaching of the Council of Trent. Of the 12 offertory prayers in the traditional Mass, only 2 are retained in the new Mass. The deleted offertory prayers are the same ones that the Protestant heretics Martin Luther and Thomas Cranmer eliminated. The new Mass was promulgated by Paul VI with the help of 6 Protestant ministers. We see them pictured here. Paul VI even admitted to his good friend Jean Guiton that his intention in changing the Mass was to make it Protestant. Jean Guiton, an intimate friend of Paul VI, wrote, quote, "The intention of Paul VI with regard to what is commonly called the new Mass was to reform the Catholic liturgy in such a way that it should almost coincide with the Protestant liturgy. There was with Paul VI an ecumenical intention to remove, or at least to correct, or at least to relax what was too Catholic in the traditional sense in the Mass, and I repeat, to get the Catholic Mass closer to the Calvinist Mass." End quote. Thus, Paul VI removed what was too Catholic in the Mass. A study of the propers and orations of the traditional Mass versus the new Mass reveals a massacre of the traditional faith. The traditional Missal contains 1,182 orations. About 760 of those were dropped entirely from the new Mass. Of the approximately 36% which remained, the revisers altered over half of them before introducing them into the new Missal. Thus, only some 17% of the orations from the traditional Mass made it untouched into the new Mass. What's also striking is the content of the revisions that were made to the orations. Traditional orations which describe the following concepts were specifically abolished from the new Missal: the depravity of sin, the snares of wickedness, the grave offense of sin, the way to perdition, terror in the face of God's fury, God's anger, the divine majesty, our hardness of heart, infirmities of soul, our weak will, our languor of soul, the strength of our vices, concupiscence of the flesh and of the eyes, the blows of his wrath, the burden of evil, temptations, wicked thoughts, dangers to the soul, enemies of soul and body. Also eliminated were orations which described the hour of his death, the loss of heaven, everlasting death, eternal punishment, the pains of hell and its fires. Special emphasis was also made to abolish from the new Mass orations which described detachment from the world, prayers for the departed, the true faith and the existence of heresy, the references to the church militant, the merits of the saints, miracles, and hell. One can see the results of this massacre of the traditional faith from the propers of the new Mass. The new Mass is fraught with sacrileges, profanations, and the most ridiculous abominations imaginable, because it reflects a false religion which has abandoned the traditional Catholic faith. The false religion the new Mass reflects is one reason why it is completely empty. It is why the fruits are utterly desolate, barren, and almost unspeakably bad. The religion practiced at the churches where the new Mass is said, simply put, is a complete sacrilege and an empty celebration of man. Even Dietrich von Hildebrand, a supporter of the Vatican II religion, said about the new Mass, quote, "Truly, if one of the devils in C.S. Lewis's The Screw-Tape Letters had been entrusted with the ruin of the liturgy, he could not have done it better." With the exception of a single genuflection by the celebrant after the consecration, virtually every sign of respect for the body and blood of Christ, which characterized the traditional Mass, has either been abolished or made optional for the new Mass. It is no longer obligatory for the sacred vessels to be gilded if they are not made of precious metals. Sacred vessels which only the anointed hands of a priest could touch are now handled by all. The priest frequently shakes hands before